Thanks a lot. I'm Pawel. I'm graduated from the Clean Fossil Fuels. It was Clean Coal Technology that days. I'm graduated last year, and now I'm working for McKinsey. There's a consulting company, but inside it you've got a couple different startups that are founded by the big company, and Energy Insight is one of those. So today I would like to talk with you about the energy demand and energy demand projections, how we can use it, why we do this, and how we are doing this and how the others can benefit from our work. So first, just to warm up, I would like to play a video that's gonna be a minute for reflection for us, and then we can then jump into the content.
A decade ago, energy markets were governed by few uncertainties. What will demand growth be? Will there be enough supply to meet it, and at what cost? Today, it's more complicated. Peak oil isn't a concern. Climate change is. Electric vehicles, energy efficiency, renewable power, distributed generation, unconventionals and geopolitics all affect the markets. The interdependency of oil, gas, coal and power are ever more complex in a dynamic global marketplace. And understanding the impact of these is vital to business sustainability. Governments need policies that help them move towards energy-efficient economies, while safeguarding security of supply and national competitiveness. Private companies need to base strategic decisions on energy market fundamentals, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to forecast how global trends impact local business opportunities. Identifying key uncertainties is critical. For instance, current low oil prices provide many investment opportunities. But how do you determine which markets have the best potential long term? A deep understanding of fuel demand and supply-demand dynamics, local policies and fuel competition is essential. It needs a combination of advanced analytics and extensive market knowledge to anticipate trends and policy decision. McKinsey Energy Insights gives you that clarity, delivering accurate energy demand outlooks today for tomorrow.
So this is the first part. I hope that's your warm-up. So now I'm gonna just introduce you quickly to what we do. So we try to build a model. That model is very granular because it's covering all over the world. It's covering each country separately. It's covering all fuels, both fossils and renewables, and is as well split it into different sectors like industry, buildings, and even inside buildings we are able to project what's going to be energy demand for the residential lighting in Africa, for example, in Uganda. Second thing is the full transparency. We are building our model that we want to share with the others. I will come back on it today on the end of the presentation, but what we want to do, we want to got the web app. It's going to be launched next month, and we are testing it to come to the world with the tool that you can use for free for whatever reason that you would like to. Then with a consulting, it's going to be the paid version, but the full free version going to be available to the people. Second thing, or third thing, it's flexibility. We want to not only build a tool that helps us to project the future, but it's all about running different scenarios. Because when you've got just one number and based on this you make the extrapolation, probably it's going to be wrong. But when you believe in some things, that you don't say that the fuel price is going to be 30 euros, but you say, if we believe that fuel price is going to be 30 euros, what's going to be energy demand or what's going to be energy mix? Then you can test it for different scenario for the 100 euros per barrel. Then you can test different scenarios and have got different insights. And the most interesting part, it's about global reach and local expertise. McKinsey has got experts all over around the world, and what we do in Amsterdam, what we do in Wrocław office, it's then tested with all the CST, so client service teams that have that they've got engagements, and they are testing it with the local utilities or local producers that we can optimize the model. But now let's jump into the content. So I want to ask you a quick question. Based on the video, based on your knowledge, based on your experience, what do you think are the main drivers of energy demand? And I know that it's hard to get the raised hand. So, okay.
Economic growth.
Yes, that's good.
Policy.
Okay, that's good. On the back of the audience?
Population growth.
Oh, exactly. So I'm glad to hear it, because on my first slide we've got these numbers. So we can see that population is going to grow to 10 billions of people. Then we can see that those people are going to be richer. So they're going to produce more GDP. Those GDP you're spending on things, or you as well need energy to fuel the goods production. And the third part is that maybe due to the policies, maybe to as well the in engineering development, we are using less energy to produce 1 unit of GDP. But this is on the top level, the macroeconomical assumptions, but there's as well happening the structural change. So people are like, the population is growing, but as well in the same time, people are getting older. It's obvious, all of us know it, but what does it mean as well for the energy demand? It means that 1 in 4 people in 2040, those people will be above 65 years in developed countries and in China. So those people are not employed. They are not in their productivity age. So this factor as well is shifting or decreasing the energy demand. The second one is structure of GDP. So people now, like for example, like I would say maybe here 70% of us, we are working in services. We are not working in a heavy energy demand industry, and this shift is happening all around the world. And the last one is as well connected to the efficiencies, and that what we do it better. We never buy now the car that is consuming 20 liters per 100 kilometers. We don't do it. We buy the one that is consuming 4 or 5, or even the electric that is not consuming at all. We don't buy the refrigerators. We don't buy the bulbs that are inefficient. We think about efficiency in every our move. And all of those knowledge, all of those macro assumptions, they are leading us to the primary energy demand. And here we've got different stories. They are varying. So for example, Greenpeace is believing that due to the political change and sustainability, the energy demand is going to be declining. Shell, for example, in their ocean scenario, they're believing that they're going to be over 80% of increase in the energy demand. In our model, in our version scenario called business as usual, so that the world gonna be looking and behaving like it's behaving today, we believe that there's gonna be growth, but it won't be super significant, because what's driving the growth are gonna be decline as well by the previous mentioned factors. And now it's a question what we can do about this knowledge. So first, we can quickly recalculate it to the emissions. So all of us, we are interested in environmental protection. We can see what's the business as usual scenario for the CO2. And now I would like as well to get you a bit active. So based on this picture, what shocks you? What's the most interesting output of it? Yes, because we've got growth of number of cars, but they are followed with the increase of efficiency, so they're gonna stay constant. That's good. We can see as well that it's almost for all emissions. It is that we've got the 30% of increase in energy demand, but it's just maybe 5 or 14% of increase of emissions. But what's for me is most interesting that if we today don't change anything, so in our scenario business as usual, we never gonna reach the 3 or 2 degrees scenarios. So if world is not changing, we're never gonna reach it. To reach it, we have to decline all of those emissions. But there's as well positive output that we can see that power generation is increasing significantly. We've got the world electrification. We've seen that in Africa, people are not having access to electricity today, but they will have got it in 20, 30 years. But still, it's gonna be constant, because now we are all working about renewables. We are shifting away from coal. We are increasing storage investment. So that's a good thing. If we're gonna apply those strategies into the industry, for example, maybe we're gonna be able to get there. But there are as well next outputs, and it is it is the main output of our model, what we do. So this is the output that is granular, it is on the country level, and it is output as well on the flow levels. So from this map, as you are investor, is the best map that you can have, because you see where, in which flow you should invest. So what's interesting here, that non-OECD countries, they are leading the growth. OECD countries, we are not increasing our energy demand. Those countries are. An interesting fact is that India will take over China, because China is now getting developed. They're gonna be taken over by India. And as well, we can see that there are some flows that you won't like to invest in. For example, for power in Europe, you would never do the huge investment. But for power in China and India, it's a good spot to be. as well for the oil producer, for example, chemicals. It's a good place, it's green all around. It's a moment that you would like to think about investment there. And now we are getting to the final point. It's why we project the energy demand, and especially why, because most of them they're going to be wrong. So this is the thing that all of us are interested. As we are now here as engineers, especially from energy, we are especially interested in energy demand, but all people from public sector that are making the policies, utilities, that they have to think about which interconnections they should be evolving, how, for example, UK should be connected with France, financial investors, because they are making the decisions, even from the small investments, like in the startup that they were presented here, to the bigger companies, even to the retirement funds. They are thinking where to save the money, and to the oil and gas, because they have to think how to survive. So all of this knowledge that we've got today, because today we have to make decisions, so we have to make it based on some projections, because we want to know where to do the investment, where are the pockets of growth, where are the value pools across all the system, and how to adapt your business model. And I would jump from all of those questions into the one. The first one, it's could oil peak, oil demand peak, and what are the implications? So let's have a minute now. How is who gonna be affected by this? So for sure, oil and gas companies, because they have to change their scenarios. Maybe they should think about, maybe if the oil price gonna decrease, how to deal with this. How I should, for example, combine my downstream with upstream, to which product I should shift my production. In the marine, they're gonna be, for example, implemented MARPOL regulation that will ban heavy fuel oil usage for as a marine fuel. So if you are running a refinery that is focused on the heavy fuel oil, with our projection, with the knowledge of future, you have to change it. So those those decisions are happening today. And here is one case that I would like to solve with you, that knowledge of the scenario or knowledge of a projection for the future is as well helpful, because we've got here the cost of the production, and we've got different areas from the globe. So when, for example, we project in 10 years from now the oil price is going to be 30 euros, everybody has got a problem. So they have to think about how to reinvest their money. So for example, now Shell is investing a lot into renewables because maybe they are afraid of this scenario. But when we assume that oil price is going to be 100%, or $100 per barrel, then we can see that those countries, they should increase their capabilities. So based on those knowledge and those scenarios, they can do their decisions today. So my last question, before we jump to Q&A, do you think that oil gonna peak or none? And if yes or no, why? It's my last question to you.
I think with the great paradox effect. So basically, if you have oil reserves, better sell it now for what it's worth than to lose it in the future. Especially I think we will see smart cities in Europe and stuff like that, not really having an impact on the market per se, but just the whole culture will change.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of, especially the OPEC countries, will just pump it out, and that's why I don't think there will be problems.
You don't believe? Any other options? Somebody believes in peak? Okay, we've got one person. Why you believe?
I would certainly say that oil will peak, but certainly not because of the reasons that was believed in the past, that we will run out of reserves, but that the world, with like the Paris climate change deal and so on, will try to move towards sustainability.
Okay, so both options are almost true. What we believe, and it's belief, because it's what we make in our business as usual scenario, not including this effect, for example, of sailout. It's that if nothing's changed, we're gonna have got the increase like this for the next years. But it is followed as well by, for example, decreases in the plastics. So the plastics are derived from oil, and as well light vehicles technology acceleration. So electric vehicles. Share riding. We've been testing that even car sharing or carpooling is decreasing significantly, especially in Europe for the moment, but we hope that this trend is going to be extrapolated to the other countries. And if we believe into all of those improvements, hopefully they're going to be a peak, but it's just an assumption. It's based on the assumption. It's not that we say that it's going to be like this, but if world going to look like it looks today, it's going to be the case. and that's it. I hope that I trigger some questions in your mind, that if you've got now the investments, that if you want to open the startup, that you're gonna ask yourself those questions.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. It was really informative. Do you have any other scenarios that you produce apart from the business as usual, or is that just the one looking view for McKinsey or for Energy Insights?
It's a really good question because yes, we do. We've got two others. It's a technological breakthrough. So we believe that some technology is gonna their learning curves gonna speed up. So that's the other one. And now we are working currently, like even today in the morning I was working on. So we are developing the environmental, like meeting all the Paris Agreement scenario. But what I wanted to present to you today, we are now launching this web app. The web app gonna be our model exposed to all of you. And as we are now launching it as in a beta version, we'd like to ask some of you, if you would like to sign up for it. You can then use it for 1 month for free. You can play with it. You can help us to improve it. Your insight would be much appreciated. And then I hope it's going to be a useful tool for you as well in the future, without full transparency, because then you will not be able to change everything, but you're going to be able to test different assumptions. Because the model that we want to build, it's that, for example, you download our model, you see that GDP growth going to be 2.5%, but you believe that it's going to be 4%. So you just type, instead of 2.5, you type 4, you press enter, model reruns, and you see what's happening. So that's what I would like to ask your help for. That's I would like to offer you the access to this model soon, in next month, for 1 or 2 months for free. You would like to, you can test it, you can see your how it's working, and then we can use this help to improve our model, and you can use this output to whatever research you would like to.
I know the scenarios from Shell, the ocean scenarios, and they're very well known. And I discussed them with them also a couple of times. And the main thing where they go wrong, or where they differ, is the fact that Shell really looks at it from a system perspective. Basically, any solar panel, it comes along, displaces maybe some sunk cost within a conventional power plant, and in that sort of sense, they really look at it in sort of a linear way. When you go to renewables, first of all, you're going to get different levels. I mean, maybe more local markets, more local developments. And it's much more about manufacturing economics. How do you take that into account in such a model? I mean, it's such a different game.
So the power model, because renewables, let's just focus on the power model. You can have good optimization model. So we based on the cost of ownership, liberalized cost of ownership for each technology and the different scenarios. And we've got the inputs how, for example, the price of manufacturing of renewables is going to be changing. As well, we are having the assumptions on what is the load stability or supply security that have to be applied. And then you've got displays that renewables can play a role. So as well as we've got the supply teams, we are making our models in the global equilibrium. So we see how, for example, different demand for oil gonna change the vision and point of view from the supply. Then, for example, recently we've been updating the numbers. We updated them. The guys come back to us from supply, say, okay, Bahrain, for example, never gonna make it. You have to change something in your model. So then we tested the model. We've seen, okay, it's impossible. We have to change the constraint. We have to change our assumption. So this is the interesting part of it. That model, you can build it yourself. You can build it in Excel almost, press solver and solve the issue. But what's interesting is that there are guys in the local clients teams that those clients are gonna come back to them and say, never. It's never gonna happen. Or for sure, in the other point of view, they're gonna say, no, we are now, for example, 20% of renewables. We're gonna have got 40 because people are investing in it. So it's a combination of both mathematical optimization with learning curves and with expert input.
But I mean, you're not cheap at McKinsey. So your clients, I know you're gonna talk about them, but in general are larger clients who still look at it from a system perspective. I can imagine that a startup coming up with a great idea might disrupt the market. But I mean, they're not directly your clients. How do you take that into account?
So this is exactly why as well we are developing this tool, because this model will be web app. So we hope that, for example, even startup like was presented before, it's gonna be affordable to him. that he don't have to use our teams to help him and like to spend a lot of money on it, but he can use our model. He can as well, like for example, talk with us on the perspective. We want this this model not only be for the biggest clients that are paying huge bills, but as well to the local to gain the local insights. Because only with those local insights, like the guy before, they are the game changers. You are able to capture it in your model. Because when you talk just with Veolia or Shell, you just see their perspective, but they're not changing.
I'm curious. McKinsey has a certain, it's a name, definitely. Your decisions and suggestions influence industry decisions and investment decisions on the top level. Do you include in your models the changes in investment decisions that might lead to a changing energy demand in the end, kind of in terms of a self-fulfilling prophecy?
It's exactly what you ask as well about, that we've got mathematical part that is coming from optimization, and then you've got as well the investor's input. It's really hard to capture it because market is going to behave differently. That's why we try to analyze before before each release of our projections, before the release of the web app. We are testing all of those with people who are making the decisions, with people who are making the investments. So we try to contact our clients to test it with them, because that's the only way that you can capture the, I would say, human part, human element of this model, only by testing it and saying, okay, guys, we believe that model gonna be like showing those results. What's your answer? What would be your change, your action? So we try to capture all of those. This, how to say it, qualitative answers into quantitative methodology. So we try to do it, but that's the most interesting part, because, for example, when you see that, I don't know, Tesla is investing a lot, so the other guys will invest a lot as well because they don't want to be left behind. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yes, I would like to ask you how many people you are actually that were working on that model and how long it took you to develop it. And I would have a very short follow-up question on that afterwards.
In all team of Energy Insight, it's around 100 people. We are still hiring now. Now we are, for example, starting the internship program with Energy. That like students that maybe are here, they've got the email about it. So the team is growing. Around, I would say, 10 people in the last 6 months. They've been dedicated only to this model. But the added value is coming from those interactions. So, for example, there was a guy who was just involved for 10 minutes in a team in Colombia that I called him and say, okay, it's my point of view. What do you think about it? He gave me his insight. I don't count it here. But half year of mathematicians, software engineers, and us analysts' work was just dedicated to start this model.
So I would like to ask if you know how companies like Shell, for example, or organizations like the International Energy Agency, how much time they develop into their projections and into their models. Like, do you have put a lot more work kind of in these models, or is it a lot less? Do you know?
In IEA, they do the update every year, but IEA has got to develop the model before. Now they are just making some small tweaks. They are playing with the results. They are writing the story. It's like 3 months they've got for the mathematics and for improving the model. They've got 3 months then for writing the story. Then they've got 3 months of QC and analysis, and they've got 3 months of holidays. So we've done it now shorter because like our first release was half year ago. Now in this half year we still improved and we are still improving. So I don't want to say that we've got a perfect granular point of view everywhere, because we do it as well a bit ad hoc, because we see that, for example, there's a really deep interest into, for example, South Africa lighting for residential. We've got the model that's covering, but then we are improving the model as well. So comparing to those companies, I would say that the teams are quite similar because, for example, the guy who was presenting before, he used BNF results. So it's Bloomberg New Energy Finance Report. So we know that their teams are quite similar about it. But the difference is that when you've got the Shell, IEA or BNF results, you just got their perspective. And best option, you've got 3 to 5 scenarios that you have to deal with. What we want to do is we want to make it more interactive, because I think that only this approach, or my managers, they thought about it previously, and that only this approach gonna be able to address all the questions. Because if you've got a subscription to our model, you run it, you think it's no way, it's impossible, you contact us. Then we can improve it. And you as well, for example, you buy the report from BNF, you read it, okay, I've got another point of view, but you cannot test it with all of their insight. You can just like maybe make some regression or maybe some correlation, but you cannot put your input into their models. So that's going to be the difference, and that's the difference that we are working on it right now. So if anybody would be interested about testing this model and running it, I can like just give you our leaflet and then we can be in touch.
Very nice. Thank you very much.